Hello, once again, one and all. Welcome back to Conquest of Azeroth. Taking a look at level 34, the Pyromancer. How is Pyromancer? It's a lot of fun. It has 3 specs, a healing, a dot, and a straight damage spec. All 3 are pretty strong in their own rights. Level 20 to level 30, and level 10 to level 20, it sucks. It hurts. But once you get past level 20, it starts really picking up and you start really feeling power boosts, which makes all the specs feel a lot better. Um, in PvP for level 10, don't do PvP unless you really want to suffer. Your damage dealing is slow. You deal a lot of damage, kind of like Rhyme, but you just deal it really slowly. And normally, once an enemy realizes where you are, they will come straight for you. And Reapers, Rune Masters, and Venomancers and Rangers will just rip you apart because you have no self-defense. Your only ability to defend yourself and lock down an enemy is either your Meteor, which disorients the target for 4 seconds, or using Cinder Grip, and Cinder Grip still lets them attack you with ranged abilities. So really anything getting close to you is going to rip you apart in the blink of an eye up until level 20 and 30, where you start getting your more powerful abilities like Dragon Leap, which you actually get Dragon Leap at level you can get Dragon Leap at level 10. And what Dragon Leap does is it's a little targeted jump that deals damage when you land. And you also have Flame Step, which is a forward. That was weird. Which is a forward dash that leaves flames behind you and frees you from stuns and roots, which is nice. For the class, it actually comes with quite a bit of utility. You get a lockpick ability. You can create your own campfires. You have a bunch of self buffs. You have 2 ascensions, which are raid ride auras. One is for reducing the amount of pushback you take when you're casting, when you take damage. The other one just makes enemies take damage when they attack one of your party members. You have 3 skins, which are your own little self buffs. Ember Skin increases your haste by 10% of your spirit, as well as increasing your movement and mounted movement speed. Magma Skin increases your armor by 200% of your intellect, as well as causing ranged and melee attacks to deal damage back to the attacker. And you also generate heat when you take damage, which is weird because you really don't want to take damage because you die quickly. I don't know why that's a thing. Ashen Skin lets 40% of your mana regen continue in combat, as well as restoring 1% of your base mana when you deal periodic damage. You have 2 seals. These are basically just, buffs you can apply one at a time. One gives you mana, one gives you intellect. It is what it is. You have 3 resources you have to deal with. Mana is the first and most basic, but then you get into your Ember and Heat. Heat is generated by some abilities, and when you get to 100 heat, you instead generate an Ember, and your heat goes back down to 0. Certain abilities and talents interact with your heat, and you have quite a few Ember spenders like Flames of Notheri, which is an AoE, or Explode, which is a single target, or Blaze, which is literally the only dot you get baseline up to level 30. You have 2 cooldowns in the form of Draconic Invocation, which gives you 5 Embers every 3 minutes, or you have Eruption, which increases your damage done and healing done by 20%, but generates 5 heat every half second for 15 seconds. Both these are pretty good. If you balance them out, you can actually really run out of the 2 resources. Outside of that, we're going to take a look at this class talent tree. Some abilities I didn't mention is you get Ember Touch. You can get Ember Touch, which is a healing ability, which consumes an Ember to heal. It scales with your spirit. Inferno Barrier is a very weak absorption shield you can apply to allies, which generates heat when you use it, and it causes attackers to take damage when they attack an ally with this on them. You also have Volcanic Shower, which is an absorb shield that generates like 50 heat that you can apply in yourself every 2 minutes. It's really effective, but it also increases your resistance to spell mechanics. And then the last ability is Cataclysm, which basically you yeet yourself up in the air, knocking back enemies within 6 yards and dazing them, and then when you land, that repeats again, as well as the damage. Talents that I would definitely say taking early that is worth it. Shazra's Boon is helps with your mana. 2% max mana back when you consume an Ember. Considering you consume Embers fairly often, this is a great way to keep your mana kind of topped up. Even with this, you'll still run out. Fire Safety is also good for increasing your damage and healing as well as reducing your threat generated. Flame Casting gives you a chance to get when you generate heat to get flame casting, which increases your spell haste for 15 seconds. This is always great to have. Spell haste is really needed with this class. Hellscape increases the duration of your dot, which pairs well with Ashen Skin. Over here you have Heated, which causes your Dragon Leap to now generate heat. Or you could take Blessing of the Firelands, which is what I take, which causes each stack of heat to increase the damage dealt by Dragon Leap by 6%. And this isn't like every 10%, no, it's every single percent increases Dragon Leap's damage by 6%. So at 50 heat, Dragon Leap's dealing 300% extra damage. At 100, if you get to 99 and you use this, you're dealing almost 600% extra damage on top of Dragon Leap, which turns into a really powerful AoE ability. You have some other abilities, such as Hasty Incantation, which increases the range of your Flame Step ability. You've got Pyromancer, which increases your critical damage by 100%. This is great unless you're the healing spec, because this only affects your damage, sadly. Bright Flames increases the amount absorbed by your Inferno Barrier, as well as the damage it deals, which is also great. And then you have Chains of Fire, which reduces the cast time of Cinder Grip by 1/4 of a second and increases its range by 10 yards. All in all, the tree so far seems pretty good. There's lots of utility in it, which is what you would expect. Taking a look at the first spec of Flameweaving, your level 10 passive is Spirit of the Phoenix. Upon taking damage that would kill you, you are instead turned into the Spirit of the Phoenix, which basically just turns into a giant phoenix. While you're transformed, your spells have no mana cost, and your spirit is doubled. You will rapidly regenerate health and mana while in this form, and it can only be triggered once every 10 minutes. Oh god, why do I yawn so much when I'm recording? Flame Bonding is your level 20 passive. It causes your Inferno Barrier to reduce its cooldown by 15 seconds if you use it on an ally. So instead of a 20-second cooldown, it has a 5-second cooldown. Make it infinitely more spammable as long as you don't use it on yourself, which is nice because if you want to use Volcanic Shell on yourself instead. Ashen Priest is your level 30 passive, and this is greatly needed. Critical heals now grant you and your allies replenishment. In addition, 20% of your mana regen continues while in combat. Pairing this with Ashen Skin means you now have 60% of your mana regen going through combat, as well as recovering when you get replenishment 5% of your maximum mana every 5 seconds. And considering the amount of times you will crit heal while using your Cleansing Flames, you will heal fairly often. You will get this up fairly often. The first ability you get is Phoenix Eggs, which basically you summon a little phoenix that follows you around and it radiates healing every 5 seconds. The heal it radiates in like this is very weak and not really worth it. It is literally less than damage than an auto attack from an NPC would heal. I don't know why it has to be so weak. I think they should fix that. The next ability you can get your hand on is Phoenix Dive. It commands your Phoenix to swoop to a target. Every target that it passes through, over, or by gets its Absorb Shield applied to it for 30 seconds, and this Absorb Shield scales with your healing spell power and your spirit, so it kind of double dips on stats. Your next ability you can get is Cleansing Flames. This is your spammable you get for this spec. Basically, it is a forward-facing cone that heals and deals damage. It's relatively cheap to use. It costs around 100 mana total if you full channel it, and it generates heat every tick. And it ticks fairly often. Oh my god, fix your fucking car. This is really good to spam, and when using it, it causes your crit heals to proc fairly often, which causes your Ashen Priest to proc fairly often as well. Next ability you get, the second to last ability you get up to level 30 is Chaos Command. This causes your Phoenix to rot in place for 10 seconds, and while it's stuck in place, it radiates healing, but instead of it being a weak heal, it's actually a very effective heal, every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. The last ability you get is Sunstrider Array. It's a cooldown that, and for 15 seconds, you generate 1 Ember every 3 seconds, and for the full 15 seconds, your Cinderheart generates double the amount of heat it would generate with each cast. Cinderheart and Kindle being the 2 baseline heals you get. One generates 20, and I believe Cinderheart generates 30 heat, and Kindle generates 20 heat. So instead of generating 30 heat, it would cause Cinderheart to generate 60 heat. Your spec tree passives are Soothing Flames, Ember Charm, Spirit of Fire, From the Ashes, Scorching Spirit, a choice between Unfathomably Hot or Concentrated Fire, Burning Crescendo. Yeah, Burning Crescendo is the last one. I'm a little over level 30 when I'm recording this because I've had a couple issues with the recording. So that's why that's being a thing. Overall, Flameweaving is actually a really good spec up to level 30. It has some mana issues. Once you get to level 30, those mana issues vanish with replenishment. So far, doing dungeons as a healer, I rarely run out of mana after level 30. Before level 30, from 15 to 30, you run out of mana fairly quickly. So I would definitely say keeping mana pots and mana drinks on hand is definitely a must. In PvP, you're a decent healer. The reliance on Cleansing Flame to heal is kind of a problem because that requires you to get into close in combat, and getting close into combat as a caster is a quick way to die. But having the Phoenix you can yeet around and command around is actually kind of nice. You can send it towards a group of allies in the middle of a big fight, and then pop Kale's command and have it just radiate a crap ton of healing. It's really nice. Moving on from Flameweaving, we are going to take a look at the dot spec Incineration. Sorry about that. Taking a look at Incineration. Incineration is the dot spec, and this pairs really well with the Ashen Skin buff, as you have multiple dots that allow you to regen more mana per tick. Your passive at level 10 is Infernus. Damage dealt by Lava Shard now applies Infernus, causing enemies to burn, dealing additional damage over 18 seconds. So, a free extra dot. At level 20, you get Scorched. Direct critical strikes with Ember Spenders now scorch the target, burning them for 30% of the damage dealt by the Ember Spender over 6 seconds. This is a third free dot. Second free dot, correction. Level 30, Lighting the Fuse, allows your periodic effects to critically strike and increases the spell critical strike rating by 15% of your intellect. So effectively, it definitely leads into the stacking as many dots as you can on an enemy. The first ability you get at level 11 is Ignite. It's a dot you can cast while moving. It generates heat per tick, and it deals a decent a little bit of damage over 21 seconds. If it's dispelled, it causes a large chunk of that damage to the dispeller, which is kind of nice. The next ability you can get is Fired Up. Your Ember Spenders are now instant cast and have a 40% chance to refund their cost, and increases your chance to crit strike by 30% for 15 seconds. This, when you have 5 Ember, and then you pair it also with Dragonic Invocation. You pop this, spend all of your Embers, pop Dragonic Invocation, and spend another 5. You can throw out a lot of damage in a very short 15-minute window. And if you're lucky, you may even get more than 10 casts total. The last ability you get by level 30 is Pillars of Flame. It's an AoE. It targets a single enemy, but then deals damage around said enemy to all the enemies within an area around said target. Doesn't deal a lot of damage, but it generates 20 heat per target, which actually can help you generate quite a bit of Ember and heat in a very short amount of time. Downside is it's got a 1.5 second cast time, and it's got a 20 second cooldown. If this were to crit, this would apply multiple instances of Scorched to all the enemies hit, which would be very good for pairing with Ashen Skin. Your spec tree passives are Combustion, a choice between Residual Power and Arsonist, Magnitude 10, Cataclysmic Power, Embrace the Fire, Searing Power, Wreath of Flames, Flame Spiller, and Fiery Passion. Incineration is really, really fun. And now this is coming from a person who despises dot specs. It doesn't suffer from the same, you have to focus specifically on your dots. This wants you to use other things beyond your dots to apply extra dots. So it gives you a reason to use your Explode, your Flare Bolt, your Ember, your Lava Shard, your Meteor. It gives you a reason to use all of these abilities to keep generating more and more damage, and the pairing of Fired Up plus Dragonic Invocation is a serious amount of single target or AoE DPS that you could dish out in a very, very, very short amount of time. Up level 10 to 20, you will run out of mana very quickly. Once you get to level 20 and you start having, your multiple dots, outside of just Ignite and Blaze, you got Infernus, and now you got Scorched. When you crit strike with Ember Spenders, you quite literally are just manifesting. Oh wait, Pillars of Flame doesn't use Ember. Okay, never mind. Ignore that part of what I said. But you generate a lot of crit strikes, and you generate a lot of dots. So you're able to keep your mana up pretty effectively with Ashen Skin, and your DPS isn't bad either. I will say it is definitely slow because if you want to keep your mana up, and before level 20, you have to quite literally apply your dots to multiple targets, which can be very tedious. There is a couple talents there's one talent that allows your Explode and Flames into the Therian when they crit to spread your periodic damaging effects to another target. Fire Passion. This is kind of nice. I honestly think that this would be paired well with some other abilities, but it is what it is. Going into combat, you'll want to lead with Ignite, Lava Shard, Blaze. That's if you're for single target. If you're going into an AoE, drop a Meteor, drop Lava Shard, put a couple instances of Ignite on one or two targets, and then use Blaze when you can. And once you have more Ember, just spam Flames and Lotharian for AoE damage. For boss fights, it'll pretty much exactly what you want for single target. Ignite, Blaze, Lava Shard, and then start dropping Explodes, or use Flare Bolt, get up to 5 Ember, pop, fire it up, spam Explode until you run out of Embers, pop Draconic Invocation, and just keep going to town with the Explosion. You will deal stupid amounts of damage very quickly. The last spec we're going to take a look at is going to be Dragonic. Dragonic is straight casting DPS. Your level 10 passive is Dragon Edge. Direct critical strikes now generate an additional 20 heat. You also gain intellect equal to 100% of your critical strike rating, which means you gain intellect based off of your crit strike. That seems a little backwards. Sorry. Aspect of Time at level 20, damage dealt by Echo of Nozdormu and Flames of Neltharion now have a 33% chance to cast an additional time for 45% of the damage dealt. Damage dealt this way can trigger this effect up to 3 additional times. This means it can trigger this up to either 3 extra times or 4 extra times, depending on if I'm reading that correctly. So you can cast Echoes of Nozdormu once, and it gets recast with a 1 in 3 chance to do it. And then there's a 1 in 3 chance of that damage triggering it again, and again, and then again. This has potential to do a lot of damage, but it's a lot of gambling. Level 30 is Dragonic Aspect. Dragonic Aspect turns you into a Dracthyr. increasing your spell damage by 30% of your intellect and your crit damage with spells by 50%. While this form is active, dealing direct damage to an enemy inflicts Dragon's Wrath. Dragon's Wrath is a very small amount of damage, but it pierces all resistances and absorption effects, so it's kind of handy, and when you're dealing AoE, this actually kind of stacks fairly quickly. Your first ability you get for the Spectre is Echo of Norsdomu. This turns your Explode into said ability. Obliterate an enemy, dealing chromatic damage and reducing all spell and ability cooldowns by 5%. This works for all of your spells and abilities. This is nice to spam. It's really good in boss fights. The next ability you get is Aspect's Blessing. Your next Echo of Norsdomu or Flames of Lotharian is guaranteed to crit and triggers Aspect of Time. Which means this can trigger this passive, the passive Aspect of Time, but at the same time, it will duplicate the crit damage. So it's already dealing more damage than a basic ability if you get lucky. And let me tell you, when you get those procs to chain together effectively, the damage you deal is insane. The next ability is Firefall. It is a 1.5 second cast time, 8 second cooldown ability that generates 10 heat per target. And what it does is it calls down fire upon an enemy and hits up that enemy plus up to 8 enemies within 15 yards of them dealing damage. It's not a lot, but it's great for generating a bunch of heat. The last ability you get is Destroyer's Maw. It's a 2 second cast time, 15 second cooldown ability, generates 30 heat, and it basically unleashes a vicious Dragonic Maw on an enemy, dealing a large chunk of fire damage that can't be resisted. That's all it does. It's a heavy smack button. Your passives for the Spectre are Alexstrasza's Gift, Timed Attacks, Critical Pressure, a choice between Aspects of Fate, Flames of Fate, and Lifebringer's Blessing, Cinderstorm, Overwhelming Flames, Agonizing Burns, Searing Flames, Mad Aspect's Scepter, and Flames of the Aspects. Dragonic deals damage. It has decent AoE and decent single target damage, but it deals its damage slowly. But once you get to level 30, boy, does your damage suddenly start taking off quite a bit. Pairing all this up with, your Meteor and your Flames of Notharian, making liberal use of Aspect of Blessing off cooldown and getting good procs of Aspects of Time, you will deal quite a bit of damage. It's just your damage will fluctuate depending on your luck, which I think is a little shitty that you're very, very reliant on RNG to get your best damage. But that's just me. All in all, it deals good damage. Most of the time, you won't top the DPS charts, but you will deal quite a bit of damage. In PvP, you're really good at target picking, selecting a single target and just dropping the sun on them. I have had moments where I walked into a battleground and hit a target and I could swear to God I could hear "Here Comes the Sun" doo 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 playing in the background as I quite literally dropped the sun on them via meteor. It's always fucking time to see that happen. Its downside is it is a bit mana hungry, as up to level 30 there is no really good way to regen your mana outside of Shazra's Boon and Ashen Skin, and considering with this spec you only have 1 dot, Ashen Skin doesn't really contribute all that much. You rely more on the Spirit for your mana regen than anything else with that. But as you get into later down the stream, maybe that might be fixed. I don't know. I'll have to find out later. All in all, the class is good. It's a Fire Mage, plain and simple, and it does its job very well. You have a dot spec, you have a frickin' dragon spec, and you have a healing spec. This, I think, is very, very nice. All 3 specs are very phlegmatic. None of them feel super weak. All of them feel really weak at level 10, but after you hit like level 20, they all start kind of really taking off and feeling a lot stronger. And by level 30, they just feel ridiculously good compared to the other classes. They're not like the best, but they sit in the upper echelons. I'd put the class at a solid A minus, A to A minus, kind of lower end of the A tier. Not because it's bad, just because it's a fire mage. It's fun and it's strong. What else could you want? Spec wise, Flameweaving is a good healing spec. Its mana issues can be a bit troublesome early, and replenishment, well, it also helps a lot and make you rarely run out of mana unless you're in a high healing situation where you're spamming your normal heals, where you still can run out of mana. It doesn't really come up all that often, but it definitely feels like it needs more ways at level 32 keep its mana up. So definitely across all 3 specs, keep mana pots and mana drinks handy at all times because you're gonna need them. Battlegrounds, all 3 specs are pretty strong. Meteor is a great way to hit multiple opponents and daze them, giving your team an advantage in a group fight. Cinder Grip is a great way to lock down a single target. Making use of Dragonic Leap to either escape or engage a target that's low health is good. If you're doing a lot of PvP, take Cataclysm because that knockback on certain battlegrounds is going to be very helpful. I'm looking at you, Arathi Basin Lumbermill. And all in all, just be aware of your surroundings. Melee stealth units will get up on your ass and eat you. Knights of Zoroath will yank you out of position, and so will cultists. And if they get close enough to you to start smacking you, it's GG. With all that said, I do hope you have enjoyed. If you have, please feel free to leave a like or a comment below. A like lets me know what you all want to see more of this, and a comment helps to with the algorithm. And I enjoy responding to my comments so long as they are constructive criticism. If they are negative, if you're being an asshole and I don't respond, that's because you're just being an asshole. If you're giving me constructive criticism, which is actually valid, yeah, no, I'll respond. I don't see why not. I'm learning this shit as I go. I'll take the help where I can get it, even if it's from a dick. Also, if you want to see more of my content, feel free to take a look at my videos. I've got a lot of videos. A lot of them don't have me really talking all that much, and the quality of a lot of the videos before I started doing Conquest of Azeroth suck, to say the least. But if you want to watch some cringeworthy shit, go right ahead and watch all that shit. With all that said, I hope to see you all again in the next one. Bye-bye.